that use jubeeedos, listen up. That one's for Jake Miller. In this picture here, you see two circuit boards. Now, this circuit board has three toroid donuts, T50-2s. It has three varactor diodes, and when you turn this knob on here, it tunes between WWV, which is 3.33 megahertz, all the way up to 6. So this is just a tunable front end and RF amplifier. There's a FET on here. So what this does is it gives you the most signal to go to the next section. Right? This is the ultimate, building a tunable RF amp for a receiver. And your TRF radios, like a super radio or that, it has a tunable front end. When you're tuning the dial, it has it, besides having the long wave, the long ferrite rod that's tuning to the frequency, it also has an amp and then a second coil that's tuning to that frequency. Then it goes to the mixer, and that makes the radio more sensitive and selective, but it adds parts to the radio. Right? Now, this circuit here, this is a direct conversion radio, and it has a bandpass filter. These two toroid coils, this coil here, this is the T50-6 yellow, it's the oscillator. But the only front end on this radio is these two toroids. And you can see there's two capacitors here to tune them in. And this is for 80 meters. And that's all it can do. See this circuit here, we can do 80 meters. We can go up to 40 meters with it. And we tune up the frequency we want. With this, we're stuck at 80 meters. And we tune it for, say, 3.5 in the center of the band. And then this bandpass amplifier, a bandpass filter, there's no amp, this bandpass filter keeps out any other frequency. And some other frequencies might bleed through if they're very strong, but for the most part, this attenuates. It only lets 80 meters through. And then it goes to, here in this empty socket, it's an NE62. And then over here is LM386 audio amp. And what this is a direct conversion radio. I suggest you build one direct conversion radio in your lifetime. This is the very simple one. You'll see the circuit everywhere. And this uses I put a Franklin oscillator in this one. All right. And I take that back. It's an oscillator that runs off the NE602. And some of my other ones, I built the oscillator separate. This is the NE602 80 meters with the bandpass filter. Now, I want to tell you, when you look at a radio, old or new, you'll see at some point they stop putting tunable front ends on radios, and instead they went with bandpass filters. And go look at the R71A. I used to think that was a great radio. It's got a whole circuit board full of ferrite beads. And when you change frequencies, the microprocessor changes bandpass filters. So there are frequencies that you're trying to listen to that get attenuated because the bandpass filter, there is no bandpass filter for that frequency. But see, you wouldn't know that unless you do a lot of reading. And later on, I'm like, I thought that radio was so good. See, that radio is basically a ham receiver that they took out of a transmitter and then sold it to the public as a shortwave receiver. Now, some of the shortwave bands, there is a bandpass filter. But a really good shortwave radio, the input signal gets amplified and processed before it goes anywhere. It gets filtered. It gets amplified. And the tunable filter does every frequency on the band. It might get a little wonky at the top and bottom of the band, but it still moves with frequency. Where a bandpass, It's set for the center of the frequency of the band, and that's it. Anything above or below gets attenuated highly. That's the whole idea of it. So that's why some of the old receivers, if you put them next to a modern receiver, pick up so much better, because they put all the extra parts in there. They put large coils in there with lots of Q. So it's sharper tune. It has more signal to work with. And if you're just receiving like a ham radio guy in another state, and he's got a giant transmitter, and you have a giant transmitter, you'll never notice anything. It's when you're working Lithuania, and you really got to pull this guy's signal out of the noise. The modern receiver, that guy's signal's not there. That's why some of these old guys like the real old receivers, like the R8 was R8. Well, anyway, the older receivers have a tuned front end that goes with whatever frequency you're tuned at. It goes along, and that's the way to go. But in the pinch, and in some cases, all you need is a band pass, and that's what this is a. I told you it's a direct conversion radio. This is a T50-6. I told you it's yellow. It runs off the NE602. So the signal comes in, it gets processed, but not amplified, and then it goes over to the NE602, which has some amplification on its input. But with a real good radio, you want it's nice to have 2 stages of filtration on the RF with an amplifier before you go to your mixer. But the NE602 is a very quiet mixer. It's nice. But in this case, they went cheap. This is a circuit I got off the internet. You know, the oscillator's running on the NE602. It's not a Franklin, but I did give it a T50-6, so it has less drift. This works very well because it only works for 80 meters. You know, mostly CW, because it's a direct conversion. A direct conversion radio will process teletype signals, CW signals, and sideband. It doesn't like AM. AM sounds wonky, all right, because it's very narrow. Read up on direct conversion radios. There's so many circuits in electronics that you could build. Stay with it until you get it working. Don't keep jumping around and giving up. It is hard to find your own mistake. Sometimes you hand the circuit off to someone that knows, and they got to want to do it. See, that's the thing. You can find a friend that knows electronics, and you hand him the circuit board, and he makes believe he cares. He looks it over, and I can't find anything, because he don't really want to dig into it, because it gives you a headache. Whenever you're trying to find someone else's mistake, it's tough. You got to want to do it, and that's what. I was the guy, okay? If you really want, give it to John. John will figure it out. Yeah, okay. That's why I'm very bitter at this age, because, you know, when I would go to bed at night, I'd have this stuff swimming around in my brain. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I sat down after doing the other video, and then like, you know, you never did a video on a tunable front end and a band pass sample, a band pass filter. And there is a guy on the internet that sells band pass filters. He sells you the toroids and the wire, and you put it together, and it's for one band. So you get your 80 meter, a 40 meter, whatever other meters, and then you put it in a box with your receiver with a selectable switch. And if you're a ham guy, the band pass is fine because it's set for the middle of the band. But if you're a shortwave listener, you want all bands, all frequencies tuned to their best. You want it to tune the frequency to the best of its ability. You want to have the most signal for that frequency. Where if you're using a ham receiver, those frequencies, they're in between the bands. They're being attenuated because the band pass, it passes them, but not as much as if it was a tunable front end. I think that's it. All right, that's it.